Excellent. Well, it's great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute up for the program today.
Thank you, Joe. It's amazing to be here. I'm excited.
Me too. So let's begin our journey with I always begin with this question because it was such a big deal, and it's COVID.
COVID. Uh huh.
5 years ago, everything was changing. So much has even changed since then. How did you get through that era, and how has it affected or influenced the way that you live today?
It's really interesting. I hadn't really thought about it, but I was watching your podcast and saw that that was a common question. And so it gave me a chance to sort of contemplate. It actually had a pretty big impact on what I'm doing today. During lockdown, my ex wife and I were living in a tiny home, like a 180 square foot tiny home. We literally had a love seat to sit on, and that was it. We had our dog and our cat. It was quite crowded. And I was always impressed with us, with our relationship, how we were able to survive. That we were living in northern Vermont. There was snow on the ground. It was an interesting time. And before we got a divorce, so spoiler alert, before we got a divorce, we had been married 22 years. So that was already, however many that is. Um, and I realized that this was actually a fairly recent realization, but I realize now that the reason we were able to survive in a small space, and actually we RV'd across country for 3 years prior to that. So again, small space.
Yeah.
And I always thought we had such a great relationship because we never fought. But I now realize we never fought because I was taught not to disagree.
Yeah.
And so um, after lockdown COVID, the whole reason we were in northern Vermont was for my stepson. He had autism and had, so spoiler alert, he had autism and epilepsy. He was an adult, about 27 ish, no, six, whatever, in his mid to late 20s at that time. And he was located in an amazing farming community. And because of COVID, he had to leave. They shut down part of the community, and he had to leave. We were given 2 weeks' notice, and we had n- no time and nowhere um, to move him to. Um, and so we knew that the three moms, so birth mother, ex, me, and him, all had to live together to support him properly. And we moved to Massachusetts because Massachusetts has really good um, communities for people like him. And we had the four of us had to live in 1,000 square foot home, 3 bedroom, 1 bath, again, small home. Um, so, long story short, um, I got really close with him, which was amazing because we hadn't had as close a relationship. But I got really close to him. I like to think I was his favorite mom by the time that was all over. Um, and my ex and I, about a year later from this, bought a house in still rural Vermont, and that's when things really started falling apart. So at this new location, my baby's mama, Austin's mother, suggested I go to trauma therapy. I had some pretty bad flare ups of anxiety, and she knew I had childhood trauma. So she recommended EMDR. I found an EMDR therapist and went through an intensive 5 day, 8 hour a day kind of therapy. And at the end of that, so this is January 4 years ago, whatever that is, uh, 2021,
One. Yeah.
two, whatever it is,
Yeah. Yeah.
two, I guess. And when I left the therapist's office, and this really does relate to my life now, so
Sure.
it's not a rambling story.
No, no, I get it.
Uh,
Yeah.
when I left his office after I'd been cured, and I really pretty much am, um, he said to me, over the next 2 years, that the changes aren't instantaneous. Over the next 2 years, your life is really going to shift and change. And, things will be different. And I remember panicking, thinking, oh my God, I don't want to change. Change, that's scary, right? Humans don't like change.
Yeah.
And sure enough, about 2 years to the day, I wound up asking my wife for a divorce. Well, I didn't totally understand what was happening to me. She had been, she was a retired police officer, and she had used and this is also a realization that I've had only in the last month or two, but she had used my early trauma against me to make me believe I was only safe if I was with her. So her manipulation, control, gaslighting, and blame, which I didn't even know what those were until 2 years ago, they were sort of forgiven so that I could be safe. And so when I told her I wanted a divorce, she said, or I wanted to move out. I said I wanted a divorce. She accepted that. But when I said I wanted to move out, she said, no, you can't. And I found a place. She had used money control. And I found a place to move to that was inexpensive, kind of wretched, but took pets and blah, blah, blah. She said, no, you can't move out. And so then I found another place that was cheaper and even more wretched. And again, she said, no, you can't move out. And I was talking with a friend. We were on a walk, and I was, singing my woes to my friend, the only friend I had, by the way, because I also was very isolated from everybody in my life. And I was walking with my friend, singing my woes, and she said, "Well, why don't you just leave? Why don't you move out?" And I said, "Well, she won't let me." And my friend stopped and turned and looked at me and said, "You're a 53-year-old woman. You don't need her permission." And it was like she had thrown a bucket of cold water on me. I sort of stopped and I was like, oh my God, I don't need her permission.
Yeah.
Like it had never dawned on me um, that I had any kind of agency, that I could leave. So I knew I wouldn't be able to move out when she was around. And this sounds awful, but she was getting ready for a trip about a week or two later. I found a place that wasn't wretched. I had my own money too. I had a job, So I found a place that wasn't wretched, that was furnished, took pets. And while she was gone, I moved out and emailed her. And so, of course, that sounds horrible, but it was kind of the only way I could get my freedom.
Yeah.
Once I got my freedom, I the fog started lifting. I started realizing what I'd been in for 20 something years. And it took a few months for the fog to clear. Once it cleared, I had been like listening nonstop to Audible books on narcissism. Like It's Not You, and I had been on Circle's app for support for narcissistic marriages. And again, I had never understood what that word was. And finally, one day, I was like, okay, everybody in the support groups is staying stuck in the victimization. And I don't want to do that. I don't know how to get out on my own, but I don't want to do that. And so I looked at my Audible list, and there was a book called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Never heard of him, didn't know the book, but it was something different. So I listened, and that really did create a pretty phenomenal shift. I always had thought I had tried to meditate before I met my wife, but it was always like Buddhist methods and Taoist methods, and I always felt like a failure. I couldn't quiet the monkey brain. And Dr. Joe has a very different meditation technique that really resonated with me at the time. I actually don't do that kind now, but well, that's not true. I did just a couple nights ago, but um, one of the messages I like to give to people is to really transform. You have to quiet the monkey brain. a lot of people are just like myself, where they think they can't meditate. And there are so many different styles of meditation to quiet that brain, that if you're one of those people, you can find one. I promise.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I was able to quiet my brain. And in the process of that, I realized that I had become really out of touch with who I was. I had no sense of identity, no sense of what does Kristen like, what does Kristen want, because that had kind of been stripped away from me. So after a Dr. Joe retreat, I was sitting on my sofa. So this is December of a year ago, so 2024. I was sitting on my sofa, and I now identify that root person, not even person, that root energy as my true self. And so I said, "Hey, true self, what am I supposed to be doing now?" And true self immediately said to me, "Go find your book from 1999." I didn't even remember writing this book, to be totally honest. But I'm a digital hoarder, and I had it digitally. So I went and found it and opened it. And the first chapter was 8 exercises, designed to help you uncover who you are. First, to realize you don't know, and then next, to take you to that step of figuring out who you were. So, my 30-something-year-old person was actually quite brilliant, but then got, lost in the shuffle. So, I didn't know what my true self wanted me to do with that, but I started going through the book as the student rather than the author, and did the first 8 exercises. And I remember thinking, wow, these are brilliant. Who wrote these? And so, long story short, there's more to it, but I wound up rewriting the book,
Yeah.
which is called Be the You That's More You Than You've Ever Been.
Yeah.
It's similar in a lot of ways. It obviously has been radically changed and updated, but um, sure, it's create an app, create a community, and also a course. Everything's in the works, but the course is at its very beginning stages. So, anyways, that's where I'm at today. I'm also now a divorce coach who specializes in lesbians who are in psychologically abusive relationships. That doesn't mean that's all I work with. In fact, most of the people I work with are straight, men or male or female, but that is sort of my special niche because they're underserved. People don't understand them, and I do.
So, talk to me a little bit about being in this realm of coaching and helping people through situations that you just had to go through. How do you separate how messy things can get with people and protect yourself and your soul? Do a good job and then also make sure that you're nourished and you're healthy.
Yeah. So I maintain my glass filling things really well. I am a little bit obsessed with my work. I mean, I don't set an alarm. I tend to wake up somewhere in the 6 or 7 o'clock hour. I can't wait to get out of bed to do my stuff. And then I tend to be up until 11. And I'm not manic. I'm so impassioned, which is actually one of the messages I give to people. If you're really living in your truth, you don't need motivation or discipline. You're just there. Um, and because of that enthusiasm, I do have to um, make sure that I've got things on my schedule to nourish and support myself. So dog walks with Kathy, for example. Last night I just popped by. She lives over an hour away. The friend who said, "What do you mean you have to, the, I have 6 sort of best friends, and I do my best to stay in weekly contact, if not more, with all of them. Ever since I left her, we didn't have a bathtub for decades, and I forgot how much I like baths. And this is a weird thing, but I love baths. So every single night I take a bath, I relax, wind down, I do a meditation, and that's how I get really great sleep. So it doesn't matter that, I get 6 or 7 hours, because they're deep and they're good. I meditate every morning, meditate every evening. I've decreased it from 4 hours a day to about an hour at the tops because I don't need 4 hours anymore. I don't drink. I have no vices except sugar. So and the sugar one's pretty bad, but I don't have the addiction to chemicals. I don't have the addiction to any vices. Um, I keep meeting amazing people that I add to my circle because of the work I do, but not just that. Like my newest best friend is somebody who lived across the street from me in that town that I moved to when, you know, I first moved out. So anyhow, it's friends, nature, meditation, baths, nourishing things. Hmm.
So after all of the dust has settled, you found your way, you're in a new place in life. Everyone has a perception of you now. Your family, your friends, all of your clients, but you're the one that's running the show. You're at a new place. What's your perception of you now? Who do you think you are?
I'm pretty amazing. And that sounds egotistical, but like 6 months ago, my therapist told me, you're really struggling with intrinsic value. And I said to him, you know, I don't understand that term. What do you mean? And I realized that, and boundaries was a term I didn't understand 6 months prior to that. Like I didn't understand those words. And understanding that I felt like I wasn't worth anything unless I was making money or doing something for someone else um, was a good thing to understand. And so I just met with my therapist yesterday and I said, I know what intrinsic value is and I have it, you know? I really know I'm doing good in the world. I'm a good person. I'm there for my friends and family. Um, 3 a.m. I'm there. Um, so and everything about my life is about helping other people's lives.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean I don't mean it egotistically, but I think I'm a good person
Yeah.
and I think I'm doing good in the world. I think I'm bettering other people's lives.
So do I would imagine going through trauma and coming out of it and seeing the world the way it is. There's so many groups that are marginalized. There's this war on women the government wages. There's all these things that are not positive about what's going on. Do you wake up hopeful? Do you remain hopeful for our planet and for our people?
I'm an ostrich. I don't watch the news. I don't
Good.
listen to the news. Most of my friends don't care about the news either. My friend from when I was 13, in the beginning, he would tell me stuff and I would have panic attacks. And he's like, oh, like you really can't hear this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I really can't hear this stuff. So he stopped filling me in on the world, and I know in some ways that's really stupid. But God, it helps me.
Yeah,
I
I get
just,
it.
I know the world sucks right now, but I kind of don't need to know that.
Good.
So know the
That,
details. Yeah.
that's good. So let me ask you this. If anyone out there has questions, they want to hire you, they want to get your book, they want to dive in, where's the best place for them to go to do that?
Yeah, I have a website that's you2.0.com. I'll give you the exact link. It's YOU, the number two, the word point, POINT, the number 0.com.
Okay.
And at that link, you can schedule a call with me. And, there really, I love what I do. There really is no pressure. I'm
Yeah,
just there to help guide you on your path, on your journey, and hopefully make your life better too. So
I love it. Great energy. I love this. I'm going to put links in the show notes. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. This has been wonderful. I appreciate it.
thank you, Joe.
You bet. Have a great